Hi, this is Sergeant Betsy Brantner Smith with the National Police Association, and this is the National Police Association podcast. I have a guest today that I have been on his show many times, and I thought to start out 2025, I'd turn the tables on him and bring him on my show because this is a guy that if you're not already listening to him, you need to get dialed in to what he's doing, not just from a law enforcement standpoint, but really from an informational and a media standpoint, because a lot of us don't trust the media, right? This is a guy that you can come to and you can get some real news, some entertainment, and you can get the real deal about law enforcement as well. Chip DeBlock, welcome to the show.
Thanks. I appreciate it, Betsy. I'm looking forward to this.
So you're a retired detective. So I'm going to ask you what I ask everybody. Chip, why'd you become a cop?
Good question. I wish I could say it was because I wanted to help people and make the world better. But I was young. I was 21, fresh out of college, and I wanted the action. I just wanted the action. And I had my choice between the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office and the Tampa Police Department. And I went with Tampa. I had a lot of friends really with both agencies, and I think it was the right decision. And I stayed 30 years.
And Tampa is a large agency, a really a well-known law enforcement agency, very progressive. I've trained there quite a bit, been there quite a bit. And you had quite a year. In 30 years, you do a lot of stuff, don't you?
Yeah. It was you grow up quickly on the street. Now I was young. I was, 21, but boy, I tell you, you grew up fast in police work, especially when you have with an agency in Tampa, they're 1,000-man agency. But it's a lot of, it's a lot of calls. I mean, you're answering, 30 plus calls a day. And so it's a lot of experience in a short amount of time, especially for a young officer. So you grow up very quickly, which is all good. But you're right. I had the opportunity to do a lot of really cool things that a lot of guys with other agencies would never have the opportunity to do. So that was pretty special.
And it's interesting. I was also 21, and when I started on the job, and I'd been a police dispatcher since I was 17. But I always think now at my age, should you be giving 21-year-old kids badges and guns and all that stuff? But we did it, right? We did it.
We did it. I mean, look, I've had some blanket parties, where I was the victim. I thought it was fun at night to go around with a cap gun and just show up on people's calls and fire the caps at nighttime, working midnights, and the sparks are going off. And that didn't go over too well. I remember them grabbing me out of my car and about 5 officers holding me down while they stripped me of the gun and the caps and stuff that I had. And there was some, you do young and stupid stuff, but that's where the guys you're working with set you straight and yeah. So I would normally say no, but the bad guys we deal with, they're, 17, 18 years old, 21 years old. They're always that age. And so, you got to have, I think you need that young blood in there, because even at a 30-year career, I'm still 51 when I retired, right? And that's starting in the game young. We don't need a lot of old officers out there. And let's face it, how many officers, even in their 40s, are going to be chasing down bad guys or even have the capability to do it? And I was a fitness instructor too, so I was in really great shape. But yeah, I still believe you need them, but you need to be very selective over who you get, and they need to have you need to have a good system in place to keep these guys honest and doing their job the right way.
So after 30 years, you retired. How did you make that leap into media?
Interesting question. So the tail end of my career didn't exactly go the way I wanted it to. So when I had 18 years on, and I was in the Organized Crime Bureau for the police department, that was pretty much organized crime, public corruption, and adult entertainment, which in Tampa encompasses all three are tied in together. And so I actually got to the point where I had to become a whistleblower. So my career and the state attorney's office was involved, where they wouldn't let me testify in cases anymore. They went public on TV and tried to damage my reputation. And I came out with a lot of notes and stuff that I've been keeping a daily journal of everything that I did. So I was pretty well backed with and protected, but I had to become a whistleblower to do that. So the tail end of my career, I was not putting bad guys in jail like I really wanted to. So the last 6 years of my career were actually working with the police union, because they had to find a place for me to work where the state attorney's office wasn't going to prosecute my cases. So there's really only so many places you can be. So after becoming a whistleblower, I started a law enforcement website called Leo Affairs, and it was the first of its type. I had over 500 agencies in 18 countries, and I had over 400 moderators, and I let cops talk without the fear of repercussion about issues going on at work. And that's why I started it, because of what I went through. And I didn't want other cops to have to go through what I went through. So, so I had that going when I retired. And the funny thing is that I retired on Thursday, and on Friday, the very next day, I got an email from a company in Boca Raton, Florida, that ended up buying Leo Affairs, Fire Affairs, Teacher Affairs, all my stuff. And then I continued on for 5 years, and I kept running everything for them. So I pretty much made that transition in the staying involved in that. And then when Leo Affairs, for my contract running things for the new company, was coming to an end, I saw that coming up, and so I got the vision to start Leo Roundtable, which is what I'm doing now, the show that you've been on. And Leo Roundtable, we covered the news from a law enforcement perspective, but I really felt that the video was going to get really hot. That was back in the time, and I retired in 2013, but we had dash cams, but body cams were coming out around that time, if you remember. And cops, we were so reluctant, weren't we? No one wanted to wear a body cam, right? But has that not proven to be one of the best things for law enforcement? It has by far saved many more cops than it's ruined careers for. And arguably, the ones that have gotten in the grease because of a body cam, they were well deserving of it. So yeah, videos became very hot. So I came up with a vision for the show, which has worked out pretty well. And we're actually we're just finishing up our 9th season, starting our 10th season right now.
So I want to take people back, because you and I were cops at a time where there really was no internet. And I know anybody listening to this under the age of 40 is shocked to find out that there was no internet. But here you are, you're a whistleblower, you're working with the union, and you decide to create this website. I remember that website. And how did you even get the training or the expertise to be able to start doing this? Because it wasn't just a static website; it was a forum, right?
Right, it was a message board. The largest, I mean, it was the largest law enforcement website, or largest law enforcement message board or forum in the world. There was none of the even close to that, and it was one of the 3 largest law enforcement websites. So we did news, but the main thing really was message boards. In fact, when we started, it was only message boards, and we eventually added news on it. But when you go through a thing, almost a near career-ending thing, you got to understand that when my whistleblower lawsuit was because they tried to put me in jail, and they tried to ruin my career. So there was a criminal component. They tried to charge me. Well, they accused me of 21 allegations in internal affairs, and there were criminal allegations as well. And I was on the porch for well over a year while this investigation's going on. And so I was so motivated, even though I got cleared of everything. It was, a year and 7 months of an active IA investigation, and then still afterwards not being able to put bad guys in jail because the state attorney's office won't prosecute any of your cases, and they go on TV and they say you have no credibility. That's the state attorney. It's hard to come back from that. And I was just, when you're that motivated because you go through that, it's amazing what you can get done. So I was self-taught. I self-taught myself, and I was always computer oriented anyhow, but the stuff I didn't know, I got with people that knew it, and I had great partners and people that helped me along the way. And I started off with just the Tampa Police Department, and then I got approached by the St. Pete Police Department because they were dealing with a black militant group called the Uhurus over there that were very violent, and they wanted to get assault rifles in their cars, and they wanted to get 3-day work weeks, and they couldn't get either one. The mayor thought that it was intimidating to have the rifles in the cars, and they didn't want to give them a 3 or 4 day work week. And so because of my website, within 3 months, they got all that. They were able to get on there, talk about the issues, what they wanted. The media picked up on it, put it out there. And then the general public became aware of it. And they put pressure on City Hall, the police chief, the mayor, in order to get things done. And 3 months later, they got the AR-15s, and, they got the work weeks that they wanted, which helped out with morale instead of having to work this 5-day work week. So
Yeah, and I want people to understand that because my agency did the same thing. A 3-day work week, it doesn't mean 3 8-hour days. It's 3 12-hour days and then some.
Right.
And but it's a great way to do police work. It's a great way to do shifts. Chip, what you went through is a real picture of resiliency. You know, a lot of cops, when we end up on the wrong side of internal affairs, whether it's just for being rude to somebody on a traffic stop or something on a much larger scale like what you went through, even though you know that you are innocent of wrongdoing, it's a really difficult time, and a lot of cops who go through that end up drunk and fat on the couch or much worse. What do you attribute your resiliency to?
Again, easy answer: faith in God, strong family, and being able to talk to my pastor. You know, that's funny. You're at least here in Florida where I'm at, you can't talk about an active IA investigation. That's a misdemeanor, and they certainly would have jammed me up for it. But it did not prevent them from talking the investigators in IA from spreading information about me about the investigation, and it's all kinds of horrible rumors going on about there, and I can't take up for myself. I mean, there was one rumor out there that I had gotten in trouble for getting a lap dance at a strip club because that's some of the stuff that I have to do. And I tell you, the owner of the strip club, Joe Redner, was calling internal affairs, taking up for me. And now it didn't happen. I mean, look, I've got lap dances on duty before because I had to, but I didn't get in trouble for getting out of control.
Explain, Chip. We have a
I'm
lot
sorry.
of non-law enforcement people. Explain why you would get an on-duty lap dance, please.
Oh well, let's just say that you're building a case. We had a 6 foot rule in Tampa for a while where dancers could not unclothed dancers could not get within 6 feet of a patron, or maybe the dancer is doing other things like we call it OTCP, which is often to commit prostitution. So you have to do things like that. Or in Tampa, you cannot have nudity with liquor. Those things don't go together. You have to make a choice. You're either have nudity, even topless, or you have to have liquor, but you can't have both. So you have to go in, and if you walk into a strip club and you don't get it, and you're doing an investigation and you don't get a lap dance, people are going to look at you like there's something wrong with you because, what are you in there for? Just like going into a bar and doing an investigation and you're not going to get an alcoholic beverage. You're crazy if you think you can pull that off in an undercover capacity without acting like, a bad guy or just doing what the normal people would do. So that's why. So the owner whose clubs I'd shut many of his clubs down, he was calling internal affairs, taking up for me because he thought that something happened in one of his clubs, which was just unbelievable, right? But also when things go on, like they raided my office at work, they confiscated all my files. They wrote a search warrant for my house. Judge refused to sign it, but they actually wrote a search warrant for my house because they thought that I was keeping things at my house, and I was keeping documents on everything I did. But it's amazing when you go through things like that. It motivates you to make sure you take the steps necessary so other people don't have to.
So now you've moved into media. When you look at legacy media, or what we call mainstream media, what do you think about their ethics, Chip?
So, well, that's an easy answer. They're lacking, and which makes shows like us, or like what we have, more important and more receptive. People more receptive to these shows, and my name and reputation's on the line. I can only use trusted sources for the news that we get. And look, let's face it, anybody can tell the news, right? So my idea is you want people to fall in love with the personality. So you mentioned the word entertainment earlier, and you need to have having an entertainment component. There's nothing wrong with that. And news can be extremely dry. So, we tell the news from a law enforcement perspective because we do view things a little differently. Law enforcement, we're normally conservative by nature because of the things that we've seen that, thank God, most people don't have to see and go through the things that we've been exposed to, because it's really not healthy, to be honest with you. So we're normally more conservative, and we have ethical barriers maybe that a lot of other people don't understand, but because of what we've seen and what we've been exposed to, most of us by far, get it. So yeah, I think the national news media sources, that you're referencing, they're really struggling right now, and for good reason. And it gives an opportunity for shows like ours to really get out there. And social media, oh my gosh, it's not opened up the door, because streaming right now, we're reaching potentially 1.5 million people, and that's just on stream, not to mention 10% of the US population by radio, being nationally syndicated. And there's other options as well. You've got, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and then you've got podcasting. We're on 18 podcast formats, or platforms, but it's the opportunities are there if you have a trusted program where people can believe what you say.
Explain to people, because here's the thing: you have a video component to the show, you have an audio component, including in traditional radio as well as streaming, and it's not just you, right? Explain to folks what the show looks like, and then we can talk about how it feels, because I can talk about how it feels, and because I think that's one of the things. It's an hour-long show, and people who are onto the streaming component get a little behind the scenes, and so talk about that a little bit.
So the original idea was because I thought video was going to be hot. I wanted to come up with a video show. Little did I know that YouTube is not going to be receptive to our channel because it was law enforcement and conservative. And so we started experiencing a lot of trouble, just like Dan Bongino did, where they were trying to cancel our show out and trying to delete our channel and giving us strikes. And if you get 3 strikes within 90 days, you're gone. You can't appeal it. It's irrevocable. You can't undo it. So, but that was that, look, things happen for a reason. There's definitely a God, right? So anyhow, the door opened up for us to go radio, and that ended up being just a godsend for us. So radio ended up being good. And so even though the YouTube thing went south, other doors, opened up for us as well. And we've just, never turned back, just like this additional, streamer followers that we're trying to get. That's just a huge opportunity.
And it's also a lot of fun. Where do you come up with your I guess your guests or your co-hosts? Because you have a huge cadre of people who come on your show.
Well, and I kind of got off track because and I apologize, because you had asked me about describing the video portion of the show and stuff. So let me just start by saying that initially I wanted it to be video, and then when we had issues with YouTube and stuff, and then the door for radio opened up. Now you're right. There's a video component and there's an audio component. So our show is during the lunch hour, Monday through Friday. So that's 12 to 1 o'clock. And that is on Eastern time, which is in Tampa, Florida. So we're on Eastern time. And we also, we have a video component as well. So obviously one of the main podcasting platforms, YouTube's considered a podcasting platform now, but Spotify also has video as well. So we do have an audio portion of the show that's specifically geared towards podcast and for radio stations. But the video, it's really where it's at. So, we give the information out on audio whenever we cover something with a video component, because not every story, but it is really hard to cover all the news stories today. Most of those have video components. So when we do cover one of those, we make it easy for the people that listen to our show to go to our Rumble channel, which is a free speech platform that we're pushing, so they can actually see that video the next day if they want to. You would ask where I get people on the show. The idea is that I don't want to just have a show where cops just sit around talking about cop stuff. I didn't want to do a typical podcast where you just have people on and I just interview people with their stories and stuff, because there were a lot of other people doing that. So I really wanted to have the top 1%, the who's who in law enforcement, talking about today's news and issues from a law enforcement perspective. And the goal was that if you're a police chief or you're a sheriff, you're a city councilman, the county ordinance people, or the city councilman or the county commissioner, or whether you're, a mayor or whoever, that even if it's a grunt level officer on my show that's talking about something, they'll take as gospel anything that comes out of their mouths. And so I had to turn down a lot of sheriffs and a lot of police chiefs, to be honest with you, because they're really not there at that level that I want them to be. And so yeah, we've got Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman's, we've got the Randy Suttons, we've got you and JD Buck Savage, and we've got the guys that bring that credibility and that top 1% of law enforcement with them. And the idea was just that we didn't want you to be able to find all the names under one roof anywhere else, like you have at Leo Roundtable. And I think so far we've been able to pull it off. And I find them, look, I'll see them, I'll see something on social media, I'll reach out to them. LinkedIn, is by far the best social media platform for shows like ours because it hooks me in with so many people. Really a great platform. Not a lot of politics, not a lot of drama, and I've been able to reach a lot of people through LinkedIn that I wouldn't have been able to anywhere else.
You know, crime has become such an issue in politics, especially over the last 4 years, and of course during the last year of the presidential race. Where do you think we're heading in 2025 when it comes to reporting on crime, talking about crime? Where do you see 2025 going?
I have good news, at least in my opinion. I have good news. I see the pendulum swinging back. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about your national media outlets. So I'm still talking about, we have to get our news from sources that are credible and trusted, and the national media is not there yet, I don't believe. And I think that's fairly safe to say without too many successful arguments against that. But I do see the pendulum swinging. So I see, especially with the new administration coming in, I think that we're going to see that swing continue, at least certainly for the next 2 years, and hopefully at least for the next 4 years, that people are going to start getting information about things that they weren't able to get before, and they're going to have credible sources coming out with that. But still, I think that people recognize that the non-traditional media sources, their place in their newfound role in America. People are coming to us in droves. I mean, look at what Elon Musk has done with X, formerly Twitter, and we have a presence on there as well. So yeah, I see the pendulum swinging back, but not necessarily with traditional media, with going forward with the alternates.
Where do you see the law enforcement profession headed? Especially most large police departments are still very short staffed. Do you think that's going to swing the other way as well?
I certainly hope so. I think there's going to be a delay for that to happen, unless we can blink our eyes and get rid of a lot of these progressive Soros-funded prosecutors, overnight, which is obviously not going to happen. There has been a move in our country to hold cops accountable for doing their jobs. And when I say accountable, I mean wrongly accountable and charging them. And we covered some stuff on today's show about that. So cops are arguably reluctant to do their jobs because even if they do things as they're trained to do and they don't deviate from training, they're still susceptible in certain jurisdictions to getting jammed up, which is unfortunate. My agency, look, I admit I'm in Florida and I work, under Ron, we work under Ron DeSantis. Even then you've got some agencies, even Tampa, we have pretty much a Democratic, city run by a Democratic mayor who also used to be the police chief, is a huge advantage, but we don't have those kinds of issues here like other people in the country are experiencing. San Francisco and Portland and Chicago and I could go on and on. So I think it's going to take some time, but if we're able to do things right and get the people in place that are really representing the best interest of the voters, and if the voters do their part and vote at the polls, I do see in 2 to 4 years, we'll start to see that swing, coming back and getting the cops to work at the places they've been reluctant to do so far.
Chip, you got a big year coming on the Leo Roundtable. Tell everybody, take a couple of minutes and tell everybody all the places they can find you, they can listen to the show, they can see the show. Tell people how to access it.
All right. Well, thanks for the opportunity, Betsy. I appreciate it. I tried to keep it simple, and our website is leoroundtable.com. And on the website, we really have everywhere you can watch the show, live and delayed. Now, it is a live radio broadcast that is Monday through Friday during the lunch hour. So that's 12 to 1 o'clock, for 1 hour, on Eastern time. And, we also do live streaming to a ton of outlets, as well. In addition to that, I have a producer that takes a copy of the live show and he'll actually embed every video that we talk about, and he'll put pictures of the good guys and the bad guys. And that goes up on our Rumble channel the very next day at 9 o'clock in the morning. That happens Tuesday through Saturday. And you get to watch the show with all the videos and everything, all the bells and whistles going on at the same time. So that makes for a pretty good way to watch it. We're also on, like I mentioned earlier, about 18 podcast platforms. We've been on Roku TV and Amazon Fire TV, and I'm working on some new exposure as well that I'm hoping I'll be able to announce, shortly after, during 2025. So a lot of good things going, but yeah, we're not hard to find. It's an hour show, 5 days a week.
Well, Chip, you're a great advocate for this profession. You are also a fantastic source of information for not just Americans, but anyone who is interested in news from a law enforcement perspective. And we absolutely appreciate everything you do. And I thank you for being with me today.
Well, I'm getting praise like that from NPA. I mean, and from you. You guys are changing the world with what you're doing, and so and a lot of people don't really realize what the National Police Association is involved with and how they just save our profession and they help cops out in the world of hurt. So thank you. I'm so happy that I'm involved with you guys and involved with you personally, Betsy. And that, and just having you guys having this relationship with you and being able to support NPA is just a privilege for me. So I really appreciate all the help.
Well, we appreciate you. And if you would like more information about the National Police Association, visit us at nationalpolice.org.
Every day, the brave men and women of law enforcement put their lives on the line to keep us safe. But they need our help to continue their mission. Activist politicians, progressive prosecutors, the ACLU, and the rest of the anti-police forces receive millions in donations from extremist pro-criminal elements like George Soros and woke corporations. The National Police Association is fighting them in courts around the country, including the United States Supreme Court, defending officers who are being attacked for doing their jobs. Additionally, the National Police Association works year-round to pass tough-on-crime legislation to put and keep criminals behind bars. Consider going to nationalpolice.org and donating to keep us in the fight. Together we can win. That is nationalpolice.org.